Sir Nick Abbot.
Dean, Boris Johnson has flounced out of our lives for a limited period, taking that dark cloud with him, and already the sun seems to shine a little brighter. Unfortunately for the Tories, it's illuminating the car crash clown show incompetence of his successor's successor, who may actually be one of those children's dolls with a string in his back that you pull to get it to say a selection of phrases. Except he seems to be broken and only says the one thing over and over again. Stop the boat, stop the boat, stop the boat, stop the boat. Perhaps we could have him changed under the Consumer Rights Act. He's not working very well. In other news, our ability to protest about any of this is about to be snuffed out. Oddly, Sunak seems to work perfectly when he's after our rights.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, Labour is claiming Rishi Sunak has lost control of his party following a series of resignations. 3 Tory MPs have announced they're leaving the Commons in the space of 24 hours, including the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's been criticised by the Commons Privileges Committee for attacking its investigation into whether he lied over Partygate. Ali Malani is a political commentator who stood against him on behalf of Labour at Uxbridge and South Ruislip during 2019. He's told LBC Partygate remains important.
I lost my father to COVID. I had to visit my mum from outside the house when she had COVID, yet he thought he was above the law. And he still thinks he's above the law. And so if there's one thing we can all do, me, you, citizens, members of Uxbridge and South Ruislip, is to kick his butt out the door and make sure he never comes back.
3 by-elections will now have to be held in a further test of the popularity of Rishi Sunak's government. The chief political commentator for The Independent, John Rentoul, has been telling LBC the opposition has to concentrate on people rather than politics.
Labour has to focus on the people who voted for Brexit. They think it hasn't gone very well, and they're much more interested in day-to-day things such as the cost of living, and they don't want to hear about going back into the EU. So I think Labour's absolutely right to stick to its current position, which I think it's very difficult for a lot of people. It's very difficult for Keir Starmer because, as we know, he strongly advocated blocking Brexit.
Donald Trump has been repeating his claims he's the victim of a witch hunt, telling supporters in Georgia he's being framed for treason. He's been making his first public appearance since a federal indictment charged him with 37 felony counts over allegations of hoarding classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida. Speaking in Georgia this evening, he called it one of the most horrific abuses of power in our country.
They want to use something called the Espionage Act. Doesn't that sound terrible? Oh, espionage. We got a box. I got a box. The Espionage. The Espionage Act of 1917. I think it was put in there about World War I boxes. And by the way, Biden's got 1,850 boxes.
And in the last few minutes, Manchester City have won the Champions League for the first time. They've completed the treble by beating Inter Milan 1-0 at the final held in Istanbul. The result now means they've won the Premier League, the FA Cup and also the Champions League. LBC weather, warm and humid tonight with showers dying out in the south, although they will continue off and on in the northern parts of the country. An overnight low in places of 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Tim Daly.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Oh, hello.
I would say he's incompetent, but I don't want to do that because that's not nice.
It's a total disgrace to our country. He sounds more and more like the mafia every day.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Britain's basked in glorious 79-degree Fahrenheit sunshine this year on the hottest day of the year so far. We are a country of right baskers. And I suppose that you young folk will want me to translate His Majesty's Fahrenheit to European surrender centigrade, and I can do that under protest. You simply double it and add 32 to get from Fahrenheit to centigrade. So double 79 is 149, and 149 plus 32 is... 149 like 9, carry the 2 is 200? 200?
Correct.
200 degrees. Blimey, 200 degrees centigrade today. Can you believe that?
No.
For tomorrow, much of the UK will be in a heat wave with hot, hot heat. And when it is hot out, the health and safety executive go into overdrive.
Emergency, everybody to get from street. Emergency, everybody to get from street.
The UK Health Security Agency has issued an amber alert, where I don't know what the difference between a warning and an alert is, but let's assume that an alert is a warning.
Warning, warning.
They're warning about an alert. An alert for hot weather in the West Midlands, the East Midlands, the East of England, the South East and the South West, which sounds like everywhere to me. Everywhere except the Northwest. Checking for you while you wait. Aha. Oh, what? Tonight it is going to be raining. It is raining right now, as a matter of fact. Even if in Glasgow you put your head out of the window and you don't actually detect rain, it's there, believe me. It will also be raining tomorrow. But then, in a change of programming, on Monday it'll be sunny and hot. On Tuesday it'll be sunny and hot. On Wednesday it'll be sunny and hot. On Thursday it'll be sunny and hot. And on Friday it'll be sunny and hot. On Saturday it'll be sunny and hot. And on Sunday it'll be sunny and hot. And then normal service is resumed. Raining on Monday and raining on Tuesday, but not raining on Wednesday, and raining on Thursday and raining on Friday, and probably raining every day for the rest of your lives. That's what I would expect. That is your forecast for Glasgow. Now, the conditions for the rest of the country are due to what they call an Iberian plume. It's pluming all over us. An Iberian plume is a mass of very warm air travelling north from Spain that has triggered a risk of thunder, lightning, very, very frightening. In the coming days, parts of the UK are predicted to be hotter than Marbella, Ibiza and Tenerife. Wherever they are. Temperatures are predicted to hit 30 degrees centigrade, as in 86F in the southeast of England tomorrow. Blimey, it's like summer out there. Would you like to hear the long-range forecast for the next 4 weeks?
No.
It took a while to get that. You've got to be faster, Carol.
Yeah.
So, as I say, would you like to hear the forecast for the next 4 weeks?
No.
No. Right, at first, this is the next couple of weeks. At first, hot and humid, very, very sticky.
Disgusting.
Quite sticky out there. Some heavy and thundery showers developing, warm and humid nights. And in the middle 2 weeks of the month, fine and sunny for most. Temperatures warm or very warm. Light winds with a sea breeze and cooler along the coasts. And then, plenty of settled and dry weather, mostly. Mostly. And the last week of June, first week of July, settled conditions, thunderstorms possible in the south. Temperatures are more likely to be above average in general. Temperatures are more likely to be above average in general. We'll take it. So, Boris Johnson has said ta-ta.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's au revoir. It's not final. He'll be back. In a rallying call to his followers, Boris Johnson said the following. He did. That about sums it up. That's really all you need to know. That's what he said on leaving. Boris Johnson used his resignation statement to deliver a stinging attack on Fishy Sunak's government. He wrote that everything was better when he was in charge, the sun shone brighter and people were better looking. And he got more support than any politician in history. Nobody was more popular. Everybody says so. Believe me. He knows words.
I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
The best words. I mean, seriously, he used to be Donald Trump's mini-me. He seems to be morphing into his clone now, what with the whinging and the whining and the moaning.
I am the most fabulous whiner. And I'm a whiner, and I keep whining and whining.
He actually said, when I left office last year, the government was only a handful of points behind in the polls. That gap has now massively widened, he said. I mean, he really is totally deluded. He was only ever popular for a brief period during the first lockdown when we were all in war mode and we were supporting the leader, no matter what a catastrophic clown show he was.
Yeah. Wait.
And the rest of his popularity was only in his own mind. I mean, can you imagine what it must be like in that mind. He must dream of floating around on a golden carpet, dispensing favours and good cheer to a grateful population of cheering sycophants. It must be the joy of Peppa Pig World every single day.
Peppa Pig World. Peppa Pig World it has
yes,
Peppa Pig
is the right answer. And you know what? I don't believe a word of it. Not one single solitary syllable. He's trying to make out that he's been brought down by the blob, the wokerati, lefty, activist, Tory MPs, by those who are jealous of his ravishing good looks and svelte frame. I just don't think he's interested in being an MP. He wants to be emperor. He doesn't even want to be king, because that's a bit mundane, isn't it? I mean, as king, you've got to go around and pretend to be interested in common people and their dreadful problems. You know, all of that. Have you come far? And all of that nonsense. He doesn't want to do any of that. He wants to be emperor. And he's not remotely interested in any of your silly problems, you constituents in Uxbridge, wherever that might be. So, talking to his mouth-breathing constituents, helping them with their rubbish collection, I mean, that's not really him, is it? So he'll be off to make a weirdly large amount of money for doing his stand-up act. Same act over and over again. Oh, where am I? That. He can rake in the cash unencumbered by the obligations that come with being an MP. Am I the only one that thinks this is just an ideal excuse to wail about being picked on, paint himself as the victim and swan off to get buried up to his eyeballs in other people's money? I mean, what kind of brave warrior runs away at the very idea of fighting an election for the seat that he already holds, and which a poll this week said he would win? Easily. He just doesn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't want to do anything as pedestrian as being an MP. It's just so not him. Other people's concerns? I don't think so. And as an MP, there's a certain amount of scrutiny about where the money comes from, and now he has freed himself to earn who knows what from who knows who. All that "I've been defeated by dark forces" sounds like hogwash to me. I mean, when was he ever in Uxbridge? Apart from a lightning visit with a photographer in tow to squirt his personality at some unfortunately accost in the high street, and then helicoptering out before spending some time with other people's money. But if it's not just Bodge that's gone, by the way. I mean, you've heard, of course, the nation is going to have to find a way of getting along without Nadine Dorries. I don't believe I have ever been so sad. Nads has gone too. It's like a brain drain without the brains. It's all drain. And, like I said, here is Boris Johnson's resignation letter in full. He said, "I have received a letter from the Privileges Committee making it clear, much to my amazement, that they are determined to use the proceedings against me to hold me to account for the things that I have done. They have still not produced a shred of evidence apart from all of the evidence they've produced. They know perfectly well that I am the king of the world, and yet they refuse to bow down before me. When I spoke in the Commons, I was saying what I believed sincerely to be what I could get away with. I have been an MP since 2001 or 2010 or something. I take my responsibilities seriously. No, really, stop laughing. I do," he said. "I did not lie, and I am not lying now. And if you believe any of that, I have a cliff top house in Dorset I would like to sell you. Very good price, excellent foundations. Trust me." He said the committee know... What? Maybe he was drunk at the time. Maybe he'd just come out fresh from one of his business meetings. He says the committee knows that they have willfully chosen to ignore the truth, that I am Boris Johnson, and they have treated me like a normal person, which is a total disgrace. Total disgrace. It's a disgrace for our country. Everybody says so, believe me. It's a disgrace because from the outset their purpose has been to discover the truth, he wrote, or genuinely to understand what was in my mind when I spoke in the Commons. This is his resignation letter. He says their purpose from the beginning has been to find me guilty of the things that I am so guilty of. He says this is the very definition of a kangaroo court. Most members of the committee, especially the chair, were terrible people, so crooked, he said. I made all that up. This bit he did actually write. In retrospect, it was naive and trusting of me to think that these proceedings could be remotely useful or fair, but I was determined to believe in the system and in justice, and to vindicate what I knew to be the truth. Oh, come on. You've got to be kidding. It's only true if you want it to be? You get to have your own facts? He wrote, I am not alone in thinking that there is a witch hunt underway to take revenge for Brexit and ultimately to reverse the 2016 referendum result. Well, you know what? Reversing the crooked decision that got us into the disaster that is Brexit is actually the will of the people. It's the will of the people, unencumbered by the billions of hooky ads bought with dodgy money that piled the lies on top of each other, that confused the uninformed to think that the country would be better out of the EU than in the EU. How's Brexit going, by the way?
Oh, fabulous.
And we should be taking revenge against the individuals that brought ruin to so many people. Hardship to the nation, who narrowed our horizons, who hobbled this country with their hooky Brexit. And now he's painting himself as the hero who could have saved Brexit, whatever that means. Protecting the disaster against those who want to fix it. This man's off his rocker. If Brexit is a prize, it's the booby prize. What the hell is worth saving of it? The inflation? The increased numbers of refugees, the companies going bust, the mountain of red tape, the queues at the ports? What? No clue. And his whining sense of victimhood is of Trumpian dimensions. I mean, the man-baby's mini-me wrote, my removal is the necessary first step, and I believe there is a concerted attempt to bring it about. I am afraid I no longer believe that it is any coincidence that Sue Gray, who investigated gatherings in Number 10, is now the Chief of Staff designate of the Labour leader. I mean, you remember what the Tories said about Sue Gray, don't you?
Sue Gray, a civil servant of the highest integrity and of the greatest reputation.
Sue Gray, a brilliant civil servant. Everyone knows that she is a person of great integrity.
Yeah, and the moment that she actually told the truth about this lot, she was the worst person who ever walked the earth. The second it looked like she was actually going to do her job, she was the worst person that any of them had ever heard of, and who the hell put her in charge of the investigation anyway?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And then he goes on about how popular he was, which is another lie, and how everything would have been better if the pygmies that hadn't ousted him from Number 10 had just accepted his glorious leadership. He actually said, why have we so passively abandoned the prospect of a free trade deal with the US? Because even with his hero Trump in charge, the Americans didn't want one. We are not that important. Any sensible country would prioritise the EU before little old us. Thinking that we're still a mighty force in the world is as delusional as he is. He wrote, I am now being forced out of Parliament by a tiny handful of people with no evidence to back up their assertions and without the approval even of the Conservative Party members, let alone the wider electorate. He said, I believe that a dangerous and unsettling precedent is being set. Yeah, actually holding people to account for the things that they have done is dangerous if it's Boris who is the one being held to account. That seems to be his position. He writes, so I have today written to my association in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, wherever that is, to say that I am stepping down forthwith and triggering an immediate by-election. And the people of Uxbridge and South Ruislip said, who? Our MP? I don't think so. We would have seen him. He wrote, I am very sorry to leave my wonderful constituency, wherever it is. He said, I am proud that after what is cumulatively a 15-year stint, I have helped deliver among other things, a vast new railway in the Elizabeth line and full funding for a wonderful new state-of-the-art hospital for Hillingdon, where enabling works have already begun. Well, what he did for the Elizabeth line was to take credit for it and nothing else, And as for the boasting about the state of the NHS, well, that must be his famous sense of humour coming through there, even in adversity. What a brave little soldier he is.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
You know, I also remain hugely proud of all that we have achieved in my time in office as Prime Minister, he wrote. Getting Brexit done, winning the biggest majority for 40 years and delivering the fastest vaccine rollout of any major European country, as well as leading global support for Ukraine. It's very sad to be leaving Parliament, at least for now, but above all I am bewildered and appalled that I can be forced out anti-democratically by a committee chaired and managed by Harriet Harman with such egregious bias. Or in other words... Not missing you already, Boris, if that's any help. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC. This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
Actually, it is quite funny. One grown man baby just whining about being held to account for the things that he has done. It's a new experience for him, he said. Some texts and tweets and such from last night. Bill says Starmer's Labour will only reboot the country if we manage to give them a good reboot first. Andy says, why does nobody point out that Johnson's success is due to a classic cult of personality? The public are not interested in competence. Why does nobody point it out? I thought everybody pointed that out. Isn't that understood? Simon says, Keir works for the same people the Tories do. He recently said in an interview that he prefers the WEF, the World the Electric Force, to parliamentary democracy. It's the... Get this thing out of the way, I can't read the rest of it. It's the same all over the West. All parties are owned by the same people. Yeah, that is pretty true. I think that most parties are owned by the same people. It's the people with the money. Not us poor dopes who pay taxes.
The little people.
Exactly. The WEF. That's one of those conspiracy theory beliefs. But I think with that one, there is some basis in that conspiracy belief. Johnny says, if Labour don't back PR, the one thing that will see democracy bloom and the end of the corrupt, toxic Tory cult forever, it can only prove that Starmer is an establishment patsy and shill of the status quo. Wow, these people are thinking with the same mind. Maybe they are members of the same Facebook group. Get your head out of the screens, kids. Go outside and enjoy life. Experience the flora and the fauna, particularly the fauna. And this idea that Boris Johnson was massively popular, more so than any previous Tory PM. Well, you know what? Theresa May, you remember Theresa May? Theresa May got 42.4% in 2017. 42.4%. Boris Johnson, with his massive landslide, 43.6%. Just 1.2% more. I bet that's not commonly understood. Bodger Johnson, with his stonking majority, only got 1.2% more votes than Theresa May did. He was never massively popular. That's just another one of his myths. He thinks that if he believes it enough, then it will become true. You know, his popularity was absolutely dismal. It was only in positive territory for a very, very brief period during the first lockdown, if you can remember back that far. April 2020, during the first lockdown, it was above zero for a very brief period, like about a month. And then it was in negative territories for the entire period, or the entire rest of his period of leadership. We didn't like you. I'll sum up the public's opinion in one syllable. No! There it is. Not popular, only popular in his own mind. Gordon says, a thought for Theresa May. This must be a sad, sad day for her. A few bottles of champagne, a small band playing a few up-tempo dance numbers. I think we can all share her pain. Yeah, kick off your comedy clown shoes, Mrs. M. Put your feet up. Relax, you deserve it. And Donna says, the House of Lords sat until 4 a.m. on the morning of the 9th of June discussing and trying to agree on amendments to the illegal immigration bill. No one else, elected politicians, the media, human rights groups are trying so hard to stop that horror, so the House of Lords isn't entirely pointless. Correctamundo, not entirely pointless. And this fatal motion that is happening this week, everybody should pay attention. Hey! Pay attention, kids. It's later than you think. This fatal motion that the groovy greenie, Jenny Jones, is putting forward in order to protect our freedoms. Because you can't take our freedom, except you can, if the public aren't paying attention, if the public are too busy concentrating on, blimey, Philip Blummin Schofield and Holly Blummin Willoughby and all those blummin people. I mean, at least there is one silver lining to all of this, is that Philip Schofield is not stories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 on the Mail Online. They have actually stopped writing to fill every corner of the internet about Philip Schofield, whatever it was he was supposed to have done. I'm still mystified about that, but it seems like ancient history now. Labour has decided not to back a motion in the Lords that would stop the government from taking away our freedom, rewriting the definition of a protest to further clamp down on rights of assembly. Essentially, rewriting the definition of a protest to include anything that they don't like, essentially. That's it in a nutshell. And pretty much the only person that's doing anything about this is the Green Party peer, Jenny Jones. Jenny Jones, hero. And Jenny Jones has asked Labour peers to back her so-called fatal motion in the Lords next Tuesday. That's this Tuesday coming up. In order to, quotes, defend parliamentary democracy. You know, the thing that we were told Brexit was all about. Restoring the sovereignty of Parliament. Well, it turns out that the people that persuaded us to leave the European Union did not want power to reside in Parliament, you know, the Commons and the Lords, because when Parliament does something that the regime doesn't like, the regime wants to be able to run the country as a dictatorship and to just do it anyway. And it's all about freedoms, the most basic of which include being able to protest. I mean, there's so much to protest about.
Correct.
Isn't there? The change to the definition of disruptive protest would permit police to impose restrictions on demonstrations causing more than minor disruption to daily activities, which could be anything. It essentially gives the regime the power to stop anyone doing anything at all that they don't like the look of. You know, like being in a free country. Jenny Jones, out of the Green Party, says the attempt to change the definition of disruptive protest was already thrown out in the Public Order Act when it was going through Parliament earlier this year, as in a parliamentary democracy. But the regime are now using what's called secondary legislation, the so-called Henry VIII powers, acting like a king, even though we've got one already. And they want to make a change by the back door with little or no parliamentary scrutiny. They just want to think it up and do it. Emperor style. Doing things by the back door with little or no parliamentary scrutiny is the very sign of a healthy democracy, yes?
No.
No. But nobody's talking a single solitary word about it. We're sliding into an autocracy and nobody's even raising a finger of complaint, except for Green Party peer Jenny Jones, hero. It's as though it's not happening. It's not in the papers. It's not on the TV. Nobody's really talking about it. It's as though it doesn't exist. I mean, even in Russia, people will be standing in a square holding up a blank piece of paper. I mean, not long, admittedly. But they would raise some sort of finger of complaint about any extra freedoms being taken from them. But in this country, it's a shrug of the shoulders. Oh, well, you know, never mind. What's on TV? This is happening this week. I'll get into that more in a while. Calm me down. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's just past 10:30. The news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Hot air. HOTAIR.
Some text and tweets from last night. Johnny says it's blood boiling that Labour aren't back in the fatal motion on protest, which is what I was talking about just before the news. He says it's incredulous. I think he means he's incredulous. It's incredible. He says, what does this say about Starmer and his plans? Wake up, sheeple, he says. Steve texts, Nick, Angela Rayner asked Oliver Dowden in PM's Question Time what's happened to the £21 billion that's just disappeared. Disappeared on the wind like a bad smell. And he replied, I believe you just tried to claim a pair of sound-cancelling headphones on expenses. Yeah, let's concentrate on the 79 quid for the sound-cancelling headphones and ignore the £21 billion that's just disappeared. Yeah. Good idea, Oliver Dowden. What an absolute shower. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Ranjit, Oldbury. Hello, Ranjit.
Hello,
have you been frying tonight?
Oh, I did. It was very poor today because of the football and the hot weather.
Oh, the football. But who's watching the football? I mean, who actually gets BT Sports? There must be like 6 people in this country.
Yeah. It's been... yesterday was good, so it's been okay. We should hopefully survive when, in another 5 to 6 weeks, the new potatoes come and the prices drop.
Well, now, hang on a minute. Wait. What kind of potatoes are you using at the moment? Are you using last year's potatoes? What kind of a shop are you running there?
I've told you, I go scumping every night in the local allotments, and then in the morning I go fishing and get the fish out the canal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't tell anybody.
No. Is that what colour of water have you got in the canal there? Brown, I expect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a new kind of water that the Tories are selling us.
It gives the fish that piquancy.
It's got minerals in. That's what they all tell you.
Have you noticed that trade goes down when the temperature goes up because people just don't really want to eat so much?
I think we need to blame something or another, and we're slowly running out of excuses now. Yeah.
Is that an answer to my question? You just completely ignore my question. Do you find that when the temperature goes up, people eat less? Yes.
People do eat less, then they tend to come a bit later.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
Talking about your mate and my mate, Roger Johnson, right? Now, this just shows how thick he is, right? Okay, he is absolutely thick. They've got no evidence on me, right? They've got nothing on me at all, but I'm going to resign anyway, right? I've got 3 stages of where I can still hold my integrity, right? The first one was to hear what the report was. The second one was maybe Parliament would not have imposed the 10 days on him.
Yeah.
And then another stage is his constituency has to have a vote of no confidence. And then he could have won. That's 4 more stages.
Yeah, I think you're missing you're missing the major point here, Ranjit. He is not remotely interested in being an MP. He wants to be world emperor. Being an MP is just so dull. Couldn't care less.
Boring.
The thing that he wants to do is avoid the stain of being in a party that loses the next general election. He doesn't want the whiff of failure to cling onto him. So if he flounces out now, blaming unseen forces and the blob and the wokerati and all the rest of that nonsense, if he blames them for his downfall, then he can go away and spend some time with other people's money, and then he can come back after the next general election as a hero, a saviour, and ride in on a wave of nostalgia and delusion. Bodger Johnson back to save the planet.
Nick, what's happened is, say if he did have a drink at those parties, that's the people are losing the plot here. They're saying, he only had a couple of whiskey, whatever he had, yeah. No, the guy was lying. That's the bigger picture. And he's lying.
No, I've just explained the bigger picture to you.
Yeah.
You weren't listening to a single solitary word I said, were you? You're just waiting for me to stop making a noise, then you could start talking again.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I totally
okay,
agree
then.
with you. Right?
Mhm.
But these dinglings, right,
Yeah.
that are still backing him up and saying he's going to be back.
Yes,
right?
the dinglings. Yeah.
Okay. You know, the thing is, at the end of the day, he's got no interest. He wants to be the lead. But when you ask these questions, these people say, okay, listen, we'll do this one step at a time, okay? He's got no evidence. Why did he run then? Obviously, you've answered it because he wants to come back as a hero.
You're quite right. I have answered it, yes, because the plan is, I betcha, the plan is to leave now so that he doesn't get the stench of failure on him when the Tories lose the next general election. And then the Tories who are going to ditch you-know-who.
I'm gripping it.
And then they'll be flailing around for a new leader. And who else is going to fit the bill than the King clan himself?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And he'll protect. He'll kid on that he's going to reinvigorate the party, and he'll come in and do his paw act, and they'll fall in love all over again. And he will come in to save the Conservative Party and blame the problems that face the nation after 13 years of Tory misrule on 5 seconds of Labour rule, and just enough people in this country are deluded enough and are going to be entranced by his act enough to think, oh yeah, that's right, what have Labour done for us? Let's vote for the Tories again. So he's not going to be our next PM, but I would put a small amount of money on him being our next but one PM. Anyway, good work, Ranjit. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Central London. That's quite vague. Gina, as Gina Miller. What, the Gina Miller? Or a Gina Miller?
I think it's that one.
Right. Gina Miller, actual real-life famous person. Go ahead.
What do you mean? No, you're more famous than I am.
I think not.
No, I mean, I'm really disappointed. Well, not disappointed. I'm really shocked by the prospect that Boris could come back again after what's happened. But
yeah. He's like that shark in Jaws. He's gone back out to sea, but he'll be back.
No, but the thing is, we're all forgetting is that Boris never changed. Boris has always been Boris. You remember that letter that his housemaster wrote?
Yes,
father.
Exactly
yes,
right. Like
exactly.
Just as a child, as an adult. Quite right.
So,
yeah.
And the letter said, in a nutshell, is that he doesn't believe the normal rules apply to him. Is basically what the letter said.
Yes.
And that's literally him. He has a very distant relationship with the truth. So it's not about Boris changing. Boris has never changed. He's always been the same person. But he's had the Conservative Party who put him into power. And then, we have to take responsibility as a country.
I see. It's my fault.
No, your fault or my fault, because I don't think you voted for him, and I don't think I voted for him, but the people who did. But there is a much more serious issue here, which is that he just exemplified that we have a really terrible system of government where there are no checks and balances, there's no real rules. The good chap theory is just broken.
Dead in the water.
Yeah, we have to be serious. If we want serious politics, Boris should not be in the front pages. None of this matters. It's all smoke and mirrors. It does not matter.
Yes, but it's show business, though, isn't it? The news is show business.
No, but we don't have... No. Politics is not show business.
But it is, though. It is in America. That's how Trump got in. Trump didn't get in because people thought that his plans for America were great. He got in because he was funny.
Yeah, well, we're all part of that problem, aren't we? Because we have to decide what we want from our politicians. And politics is a serious business. We don't want clowns. We don't want entertainers. We want people who are serious. We want people who are competent and compassionate and caring.
Right.
And we have to make a decision.
Yeah, let's get Liz Truss back.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. Let's not go there. But on Boris, 3 things quickly, because I know you've got lots of people to speak to. Any Prime Minister who who is sacked should not have an honours list. Let's just
it should
get
be
rid of that
end of government at most. Yes.
Gone, absolutely gone. Ministerial code, prerogative powers put into place, into law. But let's just do what the True and Fair Party says, which is we need to reform the entire system, is broken. We don't have proper politics in this country. It's what we have is entertainment.
Yeah, we need proportional representation. That would solve so many of our problems. But Keir Starmer seems disinclined to do that. I expect because he wants complete power, just like every other.
Because he's part of the problem.
Yeah.
The two main parties, because you know what, the system serves them. It doesn't serve the people of this country. The people of this country deserve proportional representation, proper rules and regulations put into law, and actually just let them hold them to account. If they behave like we have to, the rules we have to apply by, you have to apply by. If you came on your program and lied every night, I don't think you'd have a show.
Well,
I don't think you would, but that's what they do. You can't have. Let them apply. Play by the same rules that we have to.
Right. Okay, good to talk to you. Thanks a lot. Gina Miller, 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
David. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Right, so what are we doing?
Gibbon, we are doing a radio show, but it does remind me that I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin.
Yeah.
Now, if you want us to solve your issue, because it is a problem-solving podcast, it's called What's Your Problem? With Nick and Carol. And the address to send your problem to for total satisfaction and guaranteed fixing is nickandcarol@global.com. NICKANDCAROL @global.com, and gird yourself to be totally satisfied.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? And the one that's coming out on Monday is got, we pick a fight with the Hells Angels. What else? I was just editing it today. Editing it for swear words.
Disgusting.
She is a very rude person. I can't remember what else is on there, but I do recall we picked a fight with the Hells Angels. It's called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol? It's available on Global Player. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. Right, let's have Prague. No, not Prague. He's just come on the board, so he's going to have to wait just a little bit. Almeria. Almeria.
Oh!
Lulu.
Hello, Nick, darling.
Lulu.
This is your foreign correspondent speaking.
Is
I
it?
was in Sicily the other week, and I'm now in Spain.
Right. How's
Lovely to talk to.
how's the weather in Spain?
About 27 degrees, sunny, gorgeous.
Right.
You don't wish to know that, though, do you?
Well, that's it. That's how it is here. So, no.
Oh, no. Oh, that's very upsetting. I want it to be terrible weather.
Well, yeah, I know you do, don't you? When you go on holiday, you want it to be raining and cold at home, thereby getting the maximum value for your holiday. But no, it's a delight here at the moment.
Oh, that's very bad news for me. But anyway, I'm staying with Ange.
Yes.
And my dear friend Ange has a place here. We've come over to stay with her. We're in a gorgeous restaurant, darling. Just had truffles and everything. It's beautiful.
Oh. Well,
but,
I'd put all of your valuables in the safe when you're around Ange, because her reputation precedes her.
She's going to love this when I play back to her. So I just don't know how to follow, firstly, Ranjit and then Gina Miller. Oh, my God. I'm just...
No pressure.
With emotion. Yeah. So, firstly, I was in a club last night, and my friend texted me to say Johnson had resigned. So do you know what I did? I did the Macarena in celebration.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I did it beautifully, but honestly, Nick,
Macarena.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to do it with you, Nick, sometime.
Excuse
you should
me?
come down to Kentwyn.
Oh, the Macarena, right.
We could do it in sync. It'd be beautiful, darling.
Yeah, it's absolutely not going to happen. What else have you got?
No. Okay, so I'm incandescent with rage. Johnson's honours list.
Oh,
I mean, what sort of country would allow this to happen? Seriously, we are broken beyond repair, right?
This country needs help. Exactly.
Oh, my God. So, I mean, I tell you, 2019, 13th of December, election night, I was out in a restaurant and the results came through. I had to go home. I was so upset. And I cried cried. I cried.
Cried and cried and cried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pull yourself together, Lulu.
But, you know, I even phoned a French ex-boyfriend. I said, could you marry me so I can get out of this country and get an EU passport? That's how desperate I was. But I kind of knew that this was coming, this hideous period we've had since Johnson came in. He's broken this country so badly.
Catastrophic clown show. Yeah, exactly. All right, well, listen, Lulu, get back to your meal and watch your jewellery. Watch your jewellery around Ange, because I'm sure she's got her eye on your good stuff. Thanks a lot, Lulu. Yeah, Rishi Sunak has been accused of allowing Boris Johnson to hand out rewards to those involved in the Partygate scandal, including but not limited to more than 40 honours and peerages for his closest allies. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister. Can you believe that?
No.
There's no point in learning his name, because there'll be another one along in a minute. The Prime Minister faced criticism for approving the list, despite the police looking at fresh potential evidence of rule-breaking in Downing Street and Chequers, if you please. This was during lockdown, as well as an ongoing parliamentary inquiry into whether Bodger misled the Commons. You know, none of these people are going to go to jail. I don't know what they're having these inquiries for. The inquiry will last 50 weeks, cost £80 million, and conclude that lessons must be learned. It's always the bloomin' same. Nothing's going to happen to any of these people. They won't go to jail. They'll go to the House of Lords. Hours before Johnson announced that he was quitting, he accused the investigation of trying to drive him out. And then his long-awaited honours list was published. Awards went to Johnson's closest aides from the COVID era, including an Order of the Bath for his former Principal Private Secretary Martin Reynolds. Order of the Bath. He oversaw a garden party during lockdown in 2020, or as it should be called, a perfectly normal business disco. And he followed the rules at all times.
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times. I followed the ministerial guidance at all times. I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
He followed the ministerial guidance at all times. He also gave a peerage to his Chief of Staff, Dan Rosenfield, and a CBE to Jack Doyle, his former Director of Communications, both of whom were in office during some of the Partygate era. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, vetoed the inclusion of 4 sitting Conservative MPs, Nads Doris, Alok Sharma, Nigel Adams and Alistair Jack. Whoever they are. Probably to avoid having a by-election, which would give the public the opportunity to give Rishi Sunak the finger. You know, just like Andrea Jenkins did to protesters in Downing Street. And in other news, Andrea Jenkins, the very same person, has been made a dame. Yeah, there's nothing like a dame. And she looked nothing like a lady. Her finger stuck in the air like that. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
Johnson tried to get a knighthood for his father, if you can believe that. A knighthood for excellence in being daddy. For his father.
Well, the whole world's gone crazy.
I can't believe it. It was rejected. But you know what? I bet he'll get it next time around. As will Nads Doris. They might not get it this time around, but they're going to get it next time around. Anyone want to take that bet? I mean, when this is all blown over and we're looking the other way, they'll all get their prize, and to hell with those poor dopes who pay for it all. Betcha, betcha, betcha. And along with some underlings and enablers, Johnson also gave a knighthood to Ben Elliott, the former chair of the Conservative Party, the schmoozer of the wealthy, and he funneled money from the super-rich to the Tory Party, which is why they aren't interested in your concerns unless you're one of the haves and the have-yots. As George Bush once so memorably said to a room full of rich Republican donors.
Affirmative.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
Absolutely.
There it is. George Bush.
Absolutely.
The haves and the have-yots. That was the funniest thing he ever said. And, of course, Smug. Jacob Rees-Mogg was made a dame for not knowing anything. What?
I don't know anything.
He doesn't know anything. And Michael Fabricant got a knighthood for having the nerve to go out looking like that. Sean Bailey, the former London mayoral candidate, also received a peerage because I have no idea. And I bet you don't either. I challenge you to come up with an excuse for that. A peerage. Johnson's wife's dog walker got an OBE. I'm not making that up. And I'm also not kidding when I say that his bloomin' hairdresser got a badge too.
What?
I mean, that has to have been put there as a distraction bomb, doesn't it? A sort of joke, to get us to focus on how ridiculous that is. His hairdresser. He might as well have ennobled his personal trainer and dietitian. No offence. What an absolute shower, the lot of them. 0345 6060 973. Adrian emails, it's got a bit warmer. I've just wondered, have you taken any of your thermals off yet? Why, yes, I have. But I've still kept on my winter coat because, best be careful and cautious. He says, by the way, in 11 days it'll be the longest day of the year and then the nights will start to draw in again. Don't say that. That is true. It seems to come around cruelly early, doesn't it? So it's around Glastonbury, and Glastonbury's going to come up any day now. Elton John is doing his, as far as I'm aware, Elton John is doing his last ever gig. Ever, as in ever. Now, I don't know whether he's one of these people that does, multiple farewell tours, like Frank Sinatra did about, a dozen farewell tours. He said, right, that's it, I'm leaving, over and over and over again. But if Elton John actually does stop doing it, then as far as I'm aware, his last ever gig is going to be at Glastonbury. Ooh, I'm getting tingly just thinking about it, aren't you? I mean, that is actually quite exciting. For somebody who's given so much pleasure to so many people in the world, I mean, there can't be many people who have ever lived that have given that much pleasure to so many people. To go out on what could quite well be the most emotional concert of his life, sort of up there with, I think his career really took off when he did that show in, was it the Whiskey A Go-Go? Something like that on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles. He went over to LA as a virtual unknown, and he went to do a gig in, I think it was the Whiskey A Go-Go, or the Viper Lounge, or one of those places. And everybody was there, Neil Young and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Joni Mitchell and, all of those people. And he just took off. The mouths were on the floor. This sort of podgy bloke in glasses that waddled on stage, and then he belted out, Elton John. And so I bet that the concert that's coming up will be as emotional. I can't wait. Anyway, that's the forthcoming attractions that have nothing to do with this show. 0345 6060 973. It's just a little bit of information.
Rock and roll!
It is informative, this show, no?
No.
You can text 84850, email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. You know what? If that show that he's going to do at Glastonbury is half as good as Paul McCartney's set at Glastonbury last year, I think it was, which I'm still watching every now and again, then it'll be among the best things you ever see on TV. I can't wait. Did I say that already? I believe I did. You know what? I can't wait.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
How are you?
I'm super, thanks for asking. 0345 6060 973. Joe emails, this is how the House of Lords should be reformed. A lord or lady is appointed every month, a bit like employee of the month. They could call it Brit of the month. Each party leader gets to nominate somebody, and the finalists go to the ITV studios with Ant and Dec, and they get told that they're and they get told that they're rubbish by Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell says... And the public then vote for their favourite. Bish bash bosh. A fair elected House of Lords and essential Saturday night viewing to boot. Finally, we've cracked it. Thanks a lot, Joe. Excellent work. John says, it was always on the cards, bully, bully, bully. Get in, party, refuse to pay, trash the place, run away, let somebody else pick up the pieces. Well voted, UK, well voted. I think John's being sarcastic. That's telling the nation. Consider yourself told. And Jim says, Roger Waters. His righteous rant on Double Down News is brilliant. The utter madness of it all, incredible. Well, I haven't seen it. All I saw was that, I think it was Double Down News that put a link to the video that had got taken down by Twitter.
What?
Yeah, Elon Musk's Twitter took down a video featuring Roger Waters, which seems a bit bizarre. I don't know about any of that, and I'm not remotely interested to talk about the politics of it at all, but all I do know is that this fight amongst the people of Pink Floyd isn't helping them at all. The thing about Pink Floyd is that without Roger Waters, they ain't got nothing. They ain't got Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here or The Wall or Animals, certainly Animals, or any of those stuff, because it was all Roger Waters, pretty much all his material. And he brought sour to the table, because without him, I mean, I do play the Pink Floyd albums that were made after Roger Waters left. But without him, there's no sour. It's all sugar. You've got to have the sour to balance the sugar. I mean, the most sugary of all is the Dave Gilmour album. I think it's called On an Island. Oh. It's like a meal of blancmange. I mean, OK, he still puts in those glacial guitar solos, but it's just too self-satisfied. Here I am, lying on the beach with the one I love and looking at the starry skies, and isn't everything wonderful? Oh, please. No, you've got to have the sour as well. Hey, you, teacher, leave them kids alone. Share it fairly, but don't take a slice of my pie. All of that. Tom says, did Boris award Michael Fabricant a knighthood in his resignation honours list because he thought he was awarding it to himself? They're both identical. Well, they both go to the same hair wrangler, that's for sure. Erith. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Nick. I just wanted to tell you about this morning's show with, I can't remember his name, between 4 and 7, but it was mainly people phoning in supporting Bodger.
What?
And, yeah, people supporting Bodger. And one lady, her first words, I don't know if you'll believe this, her first words were, why don't they all just leave him alone?
He's doing his best.
What's he done to deserve this?
What has he done to deserve this?
She also said, the poor man, it's disgusting the way he's treated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The delusion is strong with that one.
Yeah. I just thought that may interest you.
Well, it appalls me if that's any help.
Somebody.
Yeah. You had to get it off your chest. All right, well done, Steve. He's done it. He's unburdened himself all over me. Graham says, do you think it's safe to assume that Smug knows nothing about Johnson's resignation because he has gone unusually quiet?
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
He doesn't know anything. He's not even giving us his view anymore.
My view?
Ryan says, I'm curious, what is the difference between an amber alert and a slightly raised yellow alert? I mean, it's purely academic because I live in the northwest of England, so it won't matter. Well, actually, Ryan, yes, it will matter. It's going to get hot in the northwest of England this week. Can you believe that?
No.
Hot as in the hot heat is coming your way. Do you have anything to wear in the heat?
No.
You might actually dry out. Simon says, I think the hot weather totally sums up the people of the United Kingdom. When it's nice and sunny and I can sit outside, I'm all happy. But when it gets so hot that it's too hot to sit out and it starts getting humid, I wish that it was cold. What a nightmare nation we are, says Simon. Well, if you don't like it, go and live somewhere else, people will be thinking. Prague, Ian.
Oh, hi, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks. Here's a person who has gone and lived somewhere else.
Indeed. And it's not much colder. than the UK, from what I see.
Glad to hear it.
Have you heard of Chris Benodi? I think you have. I think you've mentioned him before.
Yeah, the morning this morning sun rose with gold in my mouth, or something like that. I can't remember what he said.
That's right. Which he said in Italian to lack of irony.
Right.
As he backs Brexit. He's been defenestrated, so he's fired.
Defenestrated. Yeah.
Defenestrated, apologies. I should know better, especially in Prague. So he's been, because of these sexual allegations, which have gone past for many years, big backer of...
They're just allegations. Let's not get carried away.
Yes, sorry, I don't mean to alarm your legal colleagues. But the thing I have found alarming is his supporters, not anyone prominent, but are already saying, well, he supported Brexit.
Oh, right. It's the blob. It's the wokerati, the people who are trying to take our precious Brexit away.
Exactly. I wonder if this is going to be the playbook from now.
From now until the end of time, yeah.
Exactly.
They're still looking for a Brexit benefit. Haven't come up with one yet, but the search continues.
Well, he got one, 220 million. So.
That's right. Yeah, he got one, all right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well spotted. All right, thanks a lot, Ian. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. Martin says, it occurred to me that Johnson's narcissistic claims of being the victim might not be as predictable as it might seem. Possibly he looks ahead and fears the charge of corporate manslaughter in relation to the COVID inquiry and his behaviour and his decision-making during the pandemic. Martin, there's absolutely nothing going to happen to anybody that has anything to do with any of this. Nobody is going to jail, even if they deserve to suffer that fate. They will only go to the House of Lords. Believe me. I want to know where all our money's gone, don't you? And we ain't going to find that out either. And no one's going to go to jail for that either. Billions and billions and billions and billions of pounds just vanished. Where's it gone? Who's got it? We'll never find out. It's the biggest heist in history. I've said this multiple times. There can't be anything outside of a film that features George Clooney and Brad Pitt and Matt Damon that has featured a heist as big as this. The biggest theft of money in the history of the planet has happened in this country over the last few years, since COVID, since and during COVID. And nobody seems to be remotely interested. I mean, it's not Rishi Sunak's top priority.
It's the country's number one priority. It's my number one priority up and down the country, and that will be our focus.
That is not his focus, it's not his priority, not remotely interested. In fact, it's worse than you could possibly imagine. They're more interested in people who have over-claimed £10 on their benefits than people who have overclaimed £10 billion in fraud under Rishi Sunak's oversight. I mean, honestly, the stuff that's going on in this country, I just don't recognise this place anymore. Do you? It's like we're living in an alternate reality. It's like I took the red pill instead of the blue one. Next time, I'm going to take them both together. I'm going to have myself a purple good time.
Groovy.
0345 6060 973. Leytonstone. Hello, Andy.
Oh, good evening. Yes, I am Nick. Lovely to talk to you. I am truly gutted, completely gutted that Boris is leaving.
Oh, no.
Honestly, I really am. And the reason is I'll compare him to Trump because the man, I'd read and watch things about him and Trump all day, every day, because they're idiots. They have dragged politics down to such a level, and I'm not a huge, I'm not really, I'm into politics, but they have dragged it to such a level, it is disgusting.
But I don't think they're idiots. That's not right. They're not idiots. They're not stupid. Well, it's worse than that.
Yeah, it really is. I agree with that. Yeah. I really do.
Because
they're
not blundering into these mistakes. They don't make the same mistakes over and over and over again because they don't know what they're doing. They aren't mistakes. It's deliberate.
Yeah, and I believe, in my opinion, they are horrible, nasty people.
Yeah, right. Well, you'll get no objection from me on that score.
They're not doing anything to help the world. All they're doing is all they want is to have themselves in the public arena, on the front pages, the newspapers every day, etc., all over the media. They're rubbish.
Yeah, they just do and say whatever would be in their own personal best interests at any given moment. And to hell with anybody else, though any other considerations are secondary.
Absolutely. You know, and everything Boris has done with his resignation letter, he's doing it to further his own career already.
He'll be back. Yeah. He's plotting his return.
Yeah, I think you might have said earlier, I'm in my garage, by the way, working away on a Roman but that aside,
back up. What did you just say? You're in a what?
I'm in my garage, my workshop.
Oh,
working on a Roman a vase.
A Roman urn. What does a Roman earn? About $3.50 an hour.
I'm a union man. I'd pay them at least the minimum wage.
Right.
But all they want to do is be in the media. And you talked about Elton John. If I can quickly say, he's fantastic.
He is Captain Fantastic.
I've seen him in a few places. I've seen him in Dublin, 2 months ago. What we need is statesmen. And I've written a few things on an old newspaper here. And John Smith, the man that never became Prime Minister, I think would have been a proper statesman. We don't have them anymore in this country.
Yeah.
Everybody is out.
Well, you know what? Ken Dodd would have done a better job.
Did he, though? No, Dodd didn't.
These are the jokes, folks. All right, good work. Thanks a lot, Andy. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
LBC. Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
You're joking.
Yeah, that joke, by the way, was Morecambe and Wise. And I screwed it up as well. It's not what does a Roman earn, idiot. It's what's a Roman earn. See, small difference, big effect. What's a Roman earn? About $3.50 an hour. I can only remember 2 jokes from Morecambe and Wise, and I used to sit there watching them for an hour pretty much every week, just like 20 other million people in this country used to. It's that, which they used to do on a regular basis. What's a Greek earn? It was usually about $3.50 an hour. And the other one was they were sharing a bed, oddly, like Laurel and Hardy used to share a bed. I mean, I suppose for comedic purposes, they've got to both be in the same room, right? So they're going to bed, and a police car zips by outside with the siren going. And Eric Morecambe gets up and peers out the window and he says, "You won't sell many ice creams going at that speed." Other than that, I can't remember anything they did, apart from the face-slapping thing, which always looked like it hurt a lot. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Harrow. Jonathan. Harrow.
Good evening, Nick.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's been the best of times, it's been the worst of times.
Explain.
So a few years back, I used to live in an old woman's loft.
A shoe, yes.
And I learned the phrase, the mea culpa. So I'll start off by saying to you, I'm sorry.
Right.
I voted for the Brexit.
What?
I voted for the Conservatives because I thought Boris was a good chap.
Oh, my God. We found one.
I already apologise to you. I put my hands up because this country has been run to the ground. He is an adulterite. He's not allegedly. He is No, listen to me.
He's a philanderer, yes.
Disgusting. He does not take responsibility for the things that he does.
For anything.
My road now has got so much rubbish on it, and today I grazed my sweatpants, my jogging pants, on some filth.
Now, wait a minute. Hang on just one moment. Did you just say you grazed your dogging pants?
My jogging pants, my sweatpants.
Oh, jogging pants. Right.
There is nothing left of this country no more. And I'll just tell you this, Nick. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to the Jeremy Corbyn because I believe the propaganda that he was anti-Semitism.
Right.
And I see these thingies, and I think Brexit, Boris, it's all gone completely bad. But can I say something a bit more controversial?
More controversial?
Because I couldn't talk about politics yesterday because yours was a serious show yesterday. I didn't know if the boy would let me on.
Yeah.
Because you have the proper guests and things, like the Zena Miller.
Right. Well, I didn't. That was today. But go ahead.
But
are you all right?
Thing is this. I was just coughing. But I couldn't call you yesterday. But
right,
the thing is,
sweet relief.
We have to. Hello.
Yes.
We have to look into the future because the Keir Starmer. I don't want to offend you, but the Starmer, he is very. It's true. Listen to me. I was watching the TV recently.
Yeah. This is us looking into the future. Mm-hmm.
I was watching the TV recently.
Other flowers are available.
And he is just very dull. Bill Clinton writes in his book that when you look for a leader, you need to picture them as a president. So
yeah, they have to have charisma. Exactly.
And he does, and you will not like me for saying this, but Boris Johnson still, he is more seductive. I'm not gay, by the way, but no, listen to me.
Yeah,
but
you find Boris Johnson seductive.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Right.
Listen, he is more charismatic than the Keir Starmer because the problem
that
in
is
this country
true.
is going.
But are we a country that wants to be run by clowns, or do we want serious, boring people in charge for a little while? I think the latter. Let's just give it a go and see what happens.
No, the general public are, no offence, they're idiots.
They're morons. The masses are asses. That is true.
You know, if you think of someone like Imran Khan in Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, the Bill Clinton, Obama, even Liam Gallagher, the pop star, you know?
Oh, Barack Obama. Serious people.
The Liam Gallagher, they have...
How did Liam Gallagher get into that list?
Rock and roll!
Where did Liam Gallagher come from?
No, because listen to me, because when they walk into a room, because Corbyn was a bit scoffy, but I'm just going to, I want, it's true.
When they walk into a room, the room takes notice. Apart from, the room would take notice if Liam Gallagher walked into a room because people would be thinking, God, it's like 80 degrees out. Why has that bloke got a cagoule on zipped up to his chin?
I just wanted to quickly end on the wokey stuff, if I can.
The wokey-cokey.
Walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Your listeners, they mark me on the Twitter when I talk about the wokey, but the problem is in this country now, the biggest 6 problems you can't talk about. Mm-hmm. We are facing free speech levels comparable to China, actually. You can lose your job for talking about the ultra-feminists who have taken over this country.
Yeah.
And last Christmas and New Year, I was in the Middle East and
you gave me my heart, and the very next day you took it away, yeah?
Hello?
What?
Yeah. So I was in for Christmas and the New Year from the Abu Dhabi. I went to the Saudi Arabia. You know Riyadh? Have you been?
No.
And it is much safer than this country because...
Well, it depends. It depends on who you are and what you're doing.
Because I'm not sexist.
You're not sexy?
Sexist. But in this country, the police now, a lot of them are ultra-feminist women. And when I'm not gay, but when in the street, I look at young men's bodies.
I don't know. You, okay, I stopped you there. I shouldn't have done. When you're in the street and you look at young men's bodies, yes.
No, listen, it's a serious point because the genetically modified food, they are making the next generation weak with the chicken and the mashed potato and all of the food has thingies in it. That they are making the man's weak so that they cannot do the next fight. And I'm doing very badly financially because last month I bought a marble table and I took the best flight I could to the Middle East because I thought Brexit and all of this would work out. So
okay, you know what? Hang on a minute. Now, I was sort of with you. I understood what you were saying at the beginning of this conversation, but now you just seem to be throwing words together like you're pulling them out of a Scrabble bag. I mean, what are you talking about?
Can I just, my final point, can I quickly say my final point?
And in closing, yes.
So I bought a marble table for an expensive sum, and now I'm doing very badly financially, Nick, and the walkies are going to destroy this. So could you, as a final point, could you and your listeners please give me some money into my bank account?
Absolutely. But thanks for asking, and I'm very sorry to hear about your dogging bottoms. Whatever that means. Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you for, whatever that was. 0345 6060 973. I don't know, I'm thinking about putting that in my best of podcast that comes out on Monday. Normally I pull it from shows from years ago. But I am I'm giving serious consideration to putting that in, and the call that I got last night from a Humphrey, who was actually called Humphrey, if you can believe that. He was a total Humphrey, and his name was Humphrey. Coincidence? I don't think so. So if you didn't hear that, then I'm giving serious consideration to putting that in, and the call that I just had. The wokey cokey bloke.
Okie dokie.
What is happening on this show? I want to know when it starts. God, would it be marvellous when it starts? What time is it on? Josh emails, due to this weekend's events, I'm looking forward to a whole new episode of Sausages and Dingleberries topics this Monday. Can I suggest a favourite pizza topping? Well, that is in reference to me and Carol McGiffin's podcast.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, we do a podcast, me and Carol McGiffin, and we don't agree on anything, as in at all. But we particularly don't agree on anything political. And for a couple of times there, it was almost the end of the podcast because either I flounced out or she threatened to. And so we decided on, or I decided, it's one of the best ideas I've ever had, we decided on a safe space word that we would shout out in moments of danger. If we were drifting into, the ding-a-ling conspiracy theories or, whatever would come up. And so we would have safe space words that we would shout out in case of emergency, and then we immediately have to stop talking about whatever it was that got us into danger and start talking about something else, a prearranged topic. And her safe space word was sausages, and mine is dingleberries. Which, by the way, in case you're wondering, look it up in the dictionary, is an actual edible berry. It's true. But anyway, that podcast comes out on a Monday. I edited it. I put it together today.
Correct.
And it's going to come out on Monday. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? That's what it's called. Caroline texts, today was officially too hot. Well, that is true. If it had been a couple of degrees cooler, then it would have been officially not quite hot enough. What we actually want is what was the girl's name with the bears? The girl's name with the bears in the porridge. What was her name? Yeah, we want that. Goldilocks. That's right. Goldilocks. This is an educational and informative show, no?
No.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 11:30, the news headlines with Tim Daly.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
Think you're talking to?
0345 6060 973. Daryl texts, Astrid Gilberto, the woman who sang The Girl from Ipanema, has died, aged 83. For her, it's Bossa Nova and Out. Yeah, that's the tune that I hum to myself while I'm looking up the weather from Glasgow. Tall and tan and young and lovely. She died just a couple of days ago. That is completely correct in every respect. Missing her already. Ollie says, if you don't address Sir Mogg by his proper title, you can be done for treason. Sir Jacob. Sir Jacob. Puh! He got elevated for not knowing anything.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, I believe you. Totally believe you. Nobody is interested in your view.
My view?
My view. Puh! I bet his feet haven't touched the ground. Little twinkle toes just hovering above the ground. He's so delighted and full of vim and vigour. Well, probably not vim and vigour, is it? He's full of, I don't know. What floats a balloon? Helium. I bet he's just so absolutely thrilled with life right now. God, isn't it absolutely vomitous? I can't stand it anymore. But you know me, I'll struggle on. Sam Batch. Hello, John.
Look, I'm not gay for a start. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, make that clear right from the off, yeah. But you've seen a lot of hot young men in the street. Right, go ahead.
I'd rather see a lot of hot women, but not
right.
men.
Well, if you say so. I don't know. You're protesting too much. Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe we should have an FBI or something similar like the Yanks have, where we can just get rid of all what goes on in Parliament and say your finances are separate. You don't look after them. We look after them. And we're going to check every penny you spend.
Yeah, every penny.
We're
going to turn you inside out. Literally.
Yeah, you can be politicians, but when it comes to money, it's our job to look after it.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We want to need a bit of hard-nosed, hard-faced Elliot Ness's.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's what we need.
Somebody needs to be investigating where all of our money has gone. I mean, I'm completely serious about this. The government keeps making a song and a dance about, we can't pay the nurses and we can't pay the train drivers and we can't pay the doctors and we can't do absolutely anything that the country desperately wants us to do and will be in the best interest of the good people of this country. But they can just chuck money around like drunken sailors when it pleases them.
Yeah, like a man with no arms. I mean, you've got to say to them, no, you're not doing that. You've got to be scrutinised.
What's the bit about the man with no arms? I definitely thought there was a joke coming there.
No, it's a saying.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a saying up here.
Well, what is the saying?
Not in Sandbach. He's spending money like a man with no arms.
How does a man with no arms spend money?
Yeah, but that's the thing, you see. But it's a Liverpool saying, it's not a Sandbach.
Yeah, I seriously doubt it's a Liverpool saying, John. I just don't believe that. It doesn't make any sense unless I'm missing some greater truth here. He spends money like a man with no arms. I've never heard that saying in my life.
I've heard that for years, but that's another story.
Message coming from next door. It means spending money you can't afford to spend, like bills or rent money. No arms is a metaphor for being skint, but still spending you shouldn't, when you know you shouldn't.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. I've learned something from this show, which is very upsetting to me because I don't like learning anything on the weekends.
But the thing is that we need to divorce the financial side of politics for the MPs and all that from the actual constitution.
Do you mean that we should prevent parties from actually getting donations directly, and that they should be paid a flat rate based on their popularity at the last election from the people? Is that what you mean?
We should have. No political parties should be paid from the government purse.
Right.
And they should have no donations whatsoever. You all get a fixed amount.
Yes.
And you spend that amount, and then you get nothing else.
Right. Well, that would make sense to me, but try selling that idea to the people. And I think you're going to have a hard job, even though it would be beneficial to the people if we knew that political parties weren't being bought and paid for by oligarchs and the oil industry and all the rest of these evil types who are actually running the show here.
The thing that worries me is that the media, televisual and written media, are very quiet about that kind of thing. If they had a campaign,
yeah, suspiciously quiet.
Yeah, really. I mean, didn't Boris Johnson have a meeting with an oligarch, a newspaper oligarch in London, with no witnesses?
Yeah, almost certainly, at least once, if not multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's Russian, you see.
Boris Johnson is Russian. I did not know that.
Yeah, part of him is Russian.
Well, which
back
part?
down his line. I don't know which part. But he is partly Russian, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. Thanks a lot, John. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. Rona says, did you see the interviews on the news earlier with people from Uxbridge? Most were glad to see the back of Bozo, but there were a couple of supporters shouting, he's a good MP, he's a good man, he's been picked on. The numpties sobbing, he's doing his best, make me physically ill, says Rona. Morons. We're surrounded by morons. He's not a good MP, he's not a good man, and he hasn't been picked on. Jones says, please note the bit in his resignation letter which says the work of the Privileges Committee should not go on for a single second more. He doesn't want them to release their report. We pay for that investigation and for his lawyers. We should be able to read it, and I would like to read every single word, says Joan. Every word. She's very upset. She's not angry, she's just disappointed. Glenn says, Natasha Devon says that there is now a better chance for Labour to win next year's election by adopting a rejoin the EU policy above the make it work policy. We all knew that. What kept them? Yeah, they ain't going to do that if, I forgot his name there for a moment. Well, that's telling, isn't it? Starmer, Keir Starmer. Keir. If he was going to say something sensible about rejoining the European Union or getting closer to them and, rejoining the single market, whatever it might be, then he would have done that already. But he is petrified of the knuckle-dragging mouth breathers, which is a dwindling number of people, getting smaller by the day. Because not only are a significant number of them falling off the end of the conveyor belt of life because they are quite old... Those that are still remaining have realised the error of their ways. I mean, the number of people who still think that Brexit was a good idea are becoming vanishingly small. How's Brexit going?
Brexit's going great.
Even he doesn't think that anymore. But, I would not hold my breath for the Labour Party to say anything sensible on that issue. Let's have York. Hello, Jan.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
I am great, mate.
Good. You know when Rees-Mogg said that we'd have cheaper clothes and footwear after Brexit?
There's absolutely no evidence that Jacob Rees-Mogg said that we would have cheaper clothes and footwear after Brexit.
We could have cheaper food, clothing and footwear straight away by getting rid of the protectionist anti-trade tariffs that the EU imposes, and it would be very good for the British people and it would provide certainty, and I think once there's certainty the country will begin to reunite.
God, doesn't he sound like Margaret Thatcher? Well, if there is disharmony, I will bring harmony.
But I wonder why no one ever asks him about that, and
it should be the opening question every time he points his pointy head at a television screen. Every single time they should ask him about that.
Yeah, they should.
Because nothing that he says on any subject can be given any credence or treated with seriousness because he just doesn't know anything.
I don't know anything.
He even admits that himself.
I'd love to hear his reply,
Oh, his reply will be that the reason that Brexit hasn't worked is because of activist lefty lawyers and the work-from-home civil service and the blob and the wokey-cokey and all of that.
Wokey-cokies.
It's always somebody else's fault.
Oh, God. But wouldn't it be great to have a decent lot in Parliament for a change?
I can't imagine. We're ready, yeah, but I can't imagine such a thing. Where would we find them at short notice?
I don't know. It's awful. Terrible. Can I just say, well done for your marathon last Sunday. I haven't heard anybody mention it.
Yeah, extra 2 hours.
Mm.
Well, it was a piece of cake. It was a breeze. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah.
Did you?
Mm.
Good.
Plus, I will be invoicing for it, so don't worry.
Was it? No, it wouldn't be, would it? Was it getting light when you went home?
No,
not quite.
It gets light at about 4. Well, no. So I left at 3, so it was not quite. Yeah.
No.
But somebody emailed in the bad news that in about 11 days it's going to start getting darker again.
I know.
Can you believe it?
Well, I can believe it, but it's terrible, isn't it?
It is awful, yeah. It's just going too quick. I mean, it's almost July. Can you believe that?
Well, you know what that means, don't you?
What?
When the time keeps getting quicker, it just means you're getting old.
Well, I believe that the reason is that each minute is a smaller part of the amount that you've been alive. When you're older, and a minute, an hour, day, week, whatever, is a smaller part of the entire period that you've been alive. So when you're young, when you're 10, then a day just seems to go on forever. I mean, I can remember Sundays. You must remember Sundays when you were a kid.
Well,
and you just looked at the clock, wishing it to go faster.
Well, no, I used to like Sundays.
Like I said, Sundays were great when we were kids.
Because when you say you used to hate Sundays, I always think, well, no, I used to love them.
Well, what did you do on a Sunday?
Well, we usually went out for a trip out. My dad and my mum used to take us out we used to go to the coast.
Right.
Usually.
In the Austin Allegro?
No, the Ford Anglia.
Oh, the Ford Anglia. Right. What colour was it?
Grey.
Oh, I thought you... Right, okay. Grey. Grey.
Two-tone grey.
Two-tone. Fancy.
I know.
Huh. So where was the coast then?
Scarborough.
Oh, blooming freezing in Scarborough.
Well, not always, no.
See, I knew you were going to say something like that. You remember the warmth and the heat and the fun and the pleasure, but you don't remember the biting wind coming in off the sea.
Well, I do remember one day we were walking along the beach and it was that windy that the sand was being whipped up and it
hurt.
Stung your face,
Yeah.
It's terrible. But still, we still had fun,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Scarborough.
But I did love Sundays. It's funny that.
It's bracing. That's what I heard.
But about 6 o'clock in the evening, you began to think, school tomorrow.
Yeah.
Terrible.
No, about 6 o'clock. Well, yeah, no, about 6 o'clock in the evening, it was like, oh, God, because there was only 2 channels of television then. And there was nothing ever on. It'd be like one side would be something boring, like it would be the news or something like that, and the other side would be opera.
Boring.
And it just seemed to go on forever.
Terrible.
Right. Songs of praise as well.
Right. Songs of praise. Yeah, my mother liked that, so, oh dear.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear.
Awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful.
That's not going to get you into heaven, Jan. You need to clean up your act straight away, if not sooner. Time's ticking on. All right, good to talk to you. Thanks a lot, Jan. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
You've got a good... your mind is a little bit, three-dimensional.
No, I have no idea what you mean. Jim says, tell you what, if Boris Johnson's going to be put in the shed with the rest of the tools, they're going to need a bigger shed. That's right. David Cameron is going to have to budge up.
I think this is nonsense.
Yeah, we're still not missing you, Dave. Daniel says, at the time of lockdown, one caller to LBC exactly predicted that Boris Johnson would not continue as PM from around this point in history. Your caller explained that once Boris Johnson's main aim, which is... Hang on a minute. Oh, I was going to sneeze, but it went away. Oh, hate that. Daniel says, at the time of lockdown, one caller to LBC exactly predicted that Boris Johnson would not continue as PM from around this point in history. The caller explained that once Boris Johnson's main aim, which was Brexit, was achieved, he wouldn't want to be troubled by any further tasks. I'm not sure that's entirely correct, Daniel. I think that Boris Johnson just wants to bathe in the adulation of a large number of people. And, you know, he's going off to do his clown act for rooms full of bankers. And that's OK, because it brings in the dosh. But he doesn't really want to spend the rest of his life as the entertainment. There's no glory in that. It's a task of dwindling prospects. So I believe that he wants desperately to come back as the dear leader. It's just when he does it is the thing. Because he's flounced out now, so he doesn't have to get the stench of failure all over him when the Tories lose the next general election. Assuming that is what happens. So he can skip all that and be better positioned to say, well, the reason that you lost is because you were missing my magnificence. Behold. Just look at my magnificence. Have you ever seen this before?
Disgusting.
And so he's going to want to come back. And it would be perfectly positioned for him to come back while the Tory party is out of power, so he can take over and then lead them to another general election once Labour fails to clean up the mess that the Tories have caused over the previous 14 years in about 14 days straight. If they can't clean up the mess that the Tories have created over the last 14 years in 14 days straight, then the nation will start to blame the Labour Party for everything that ails the country. You know they will. So he's going to want to lead us to another stonking majority for the Tory party. It's just the problem is when. So he's not going to want to be the next PM, because if the Tories lose the next general election, then Fishy Sunak is going to be out of here, gone, to spend more time with his cashmere hoodie collection. He's not going to want to do any of the heavy lifting in opposition. Of course he won't. I mean, I genuinely don't know why he's doing this job in the first place. Why? What's in it for him? I mean, a man's got more money than God. God? He's got... I was, I forgot what her name is now. God, I'm forgetting so much. What's her name? What's her name? Who? Exactly. Who? It's gone. Anyway. He's not going to want to do any of that. So Fishy Sunak is going to be gone. So who's going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party? I mean, does anybody have any idea? Maybe we should get the Trust Bot to do it.
Absolutely.
I mean, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Or maybe they could get Smug to stand in.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know anything. They could just, use him as a combination doorstop and leader of the Conservative Party. So he's going to want to put a couple of years between him and coming back, between now and coming back, Boris Johnson. So it'll be about a year, I would suggest, before the next general election, not the one coming up, but the following general election. He's going to want to, sail in on a perfumed cloud to the cheers and adulations of rooms full of sycophants. Behold the glory that is me, he'll say. So there's going to have to be a place, a place person in between. So Fishy Sunak's going to be, he'll go back to California and spend more time with his wife's money.
Bye-bye.
And there's going to have to be somebody else to take over. Who it is, I don't know. I mean, whoever it happens to be at the bottom of the barrel. unless they've scraped through the bottom and are now digging through dirt. But Boris Johnson is going to watch them fail and then come back to bathe himself in glory. That's my prediction. Anybody want to take a bet? 0345 6060 973. Blimey, you've been waiting a long time. Sorry about that, Mike. East Yorkshire.
Hi, Nick. Yeah. Actually, your prediction agrees very much with what I said, but he won't come back a year before the election after next. I think he'll come back 3 years before the election after next. But other than that, I think what you said is nearly perfect.
Right.
But anyway, Natasha Devon got a mention earlier on. She also said on the show tonight that the government have appealed to the ECHR on the basis that they want them to rule that they don't have to disclose WhatsApps if they contain any private information whatever.
Right. Irony piling on irony. They're appealing to the European Court of Human Rights. Yeah, the very organisation they are trying to remove themselves from.
Yeah, which is perhaps an appeal to them as well.
Comical.
To claim it's dismissal. It's brilliant. But anyway, Johnson and this Privileges Committee thing, it struck me today thinking about it that we've known that there's going to be a decision coming from them, which could have been he's innocent, 1 day suspension, or recommend a 10-day suspension.
Right.
So the people with the money, that you said, it's strange how certain people with money, both in America and here, seem to have an influence. And it struck me, they'll have been gaming this for weeks. So what Johnson's done is not off the cuff.
No.
And what Doris did isn't off the cuff, and what this next MP's done isn't off the cuff. This is a plan.
Yeah.
Because these people invest, as you said, like you said about investing in donorship to the Tory party. It's a great way of making money. Well, this lot have invested in Johnson. I mean, wallpapers and preferential loans and holidays and even feeding. I mean, they've got money invested in Johnson. He's that bitch.
And he can eat a lot. Yeah.
They want a return out of this guy, so they're planning how they can get a return out. And the first thing they need to do is destroy Sunak.
Yeah.
And then they'll, as you said, they'll feed him back in at the appropriate point because they look long term. They're investing in this bloke. And
the question is who's going to take over after Sunak? Because whoever it is will just be they'll just be a stand-in for the main act, which will be returning on the wind like a bad smell, but whenever it is, a year or 3 years before the following general election.
Well, there is one obvious candidate who's been trying her best to get herself into that position.
Oh, my God, don't say it.
No, I didn't. But that is a horrible thought. But
I've got three horrible thoughts swirling around my mind right now. We're talking about Nads? No. You're talking about Pretty? No. You must be talking about the other one.
The other one.
The other one. Oh, my God. We're all in great danger. I'll see you at the airport. All right, thanks a lot, Mike. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Anybody care what this guy thinks?
No! And remember, darling, I don't work before 10 in the morning and never after 4:30 in the afternoon.
Those are my strict rules. Tom says, let's face facts. Boris had to stand down because of Jeremy Corbyn. It's all Jeremy Corbyn's fault. Just imagine where we could have been as a country if Jeremy Corbyn wasn't in charge. We could have the best country in the world, says Tom. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeremy Corbyn. No! You see what you've done? I have an idea as to who the Tories could get to replace Fishy Sunak when he flounces out after the next general election.
Oh, hello there. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, how about Gavin Williamson? I mean, it couldn't get much worse, could it? I mean, at least the man is patriotic.
I just reckon we've got the very best people in this country, much better than the French have, much better than the Belgians have, much better than the Americans have. That doesn't surprise me at all, because we're a much better country than every single one of them.
Much better country than every single one of them. He knows what to say to Vladimir Putin. Tell him to shut up and go away. He had wasn't he the guy that had that smart idea to mount cannons on cows? Did I dream that? I think that was one of his ideas. Let's put cannons on cows. What's wrong with that? Gary says politicians are loathed for their nepotism and self-serving attitude. Johnson's dishonours list, for example, the romantic notion of public service is dead. However, I do vote, Nick, perhaps naively, with hope in my heart. We love the greenie. Are you talking about Baroness Jenny Jones? The groovy greenie? Groovy. Well, this is very, 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 very important, and nobody is talking about this, which I find highly suspicious. We're about to have our freedoms taken from us, and it's going to happen this week. We're sliding into an autocracy. A dictatorship. What kind of a country bans protest against the regime? A dictatorship. China, Russia, Great Britain. Yes, it's happening to us this week. And the Labour Party is not lifting a finger to do anything about it. They could do, but they're not. The Green Party is the one that is trying to save us, specifically Jenny Jones. Labour has decided not to back a motion in the Lords that would stop the government from rewriting the definition of protest to further clamp down on rights of assembly. Basically, they tried to get this through, and the Lords said no. And so for the first time ever, as far as I'm aware, the government said, oh, OK, well, we want to do it anyway, so we're just going to ignore what Parliament says, and we're going to stick it up the country regardless. And Jenny Jones is trying to stop this from happening this week. She is trying to protect our freedom to voice our opinion, basically. In her petition, Baroness Jenny Jones writes, the government lost a vote in the Lords on the Public Order Bill to change the interpretation of serious disruption of other people's day-to-day activities to mean anything more than minor. And the Lords opposed this by 254 votes to 240. She says the government is now trying to reinsert this change via secondary legislation which has less parliamentary scrutiny and can't be amended in any way. You'll remember one of the reasons that we wanted, or they wanted us to vote for Brexit, was that we could return sovereignty to Parliament. Power back to Parliament. Now, Parliament always had power, but let's not go down that road. Let's concentrate on the matter of hand. They didn't want power to go to Parliament. They wanted power to rest in the hands of the regime themselves. That's not Parliament. That's a dictatorship. She said, if we lose the Lord's vote on this fatal motion this coming Tuesday, then it allows ministers for the first time ever to overturn a parliamentary vote against a new law. It sets a precedent where a government can lose votes in Parliament when trying to pass legislation and then simply have the same laws waved through as regulations. It undermines the whole system of parliamentary democracy and allows government by diktat. Diktat, as in orders from a dictator. Who would have guessed that Britain's first wannabe dictator would come in such a scrumptious package? I mean, look at his eyes. Look at his cute little suit. Look at his his hair. Isn't he an absolute dream? Actually, about the hair, I mean, those oily locks, I mean, seriously.
You don't need to put all of that product in your hair. You just don't.
You should ease up on the lotion, Fishy. I mean, you're a one-man environmental hazard. If you go into the sea around these parts without getting seweraged to death, you'll cause an oil slick. The Exxon Valdez didn't have as much oil on board. And Jenny Jones, top greenie, called on Labour to work with the other opposition parties to stop this legislation in its tracks. And did they? No, they didn't. Did Keir Starmer actually do something positive to protect this country from this increasing dictatorship? No. Of course they didn't. Instead of banding together for the benefit of the country, Labour has tabled what it calls a motion of regret. It opposes the government proposal, but doesn't actually do anything about it. I mean, it's like putting a sad face emoji on a letter. A motion of regret. So they're registering their disapproval while doing nothing to stop it. To stop our most fundamental of rights being taken from us. I mean, serious question. What is the Labour Party for? Anyone? Anyone at all? Jenny Jones says the government says this new law is about Just Stop Oil. You know, the slow marching people. And the people who want to glue their face to the M25. That lot. This is just an excuse. She says it will hurt anyone who ever wants to organise a protest or assembly. Anyone from Friends of the Earth to local people raising an issue outside a council meeting. It allows the police and the Home Office to effectively decide what is a good or bad protest. You know, like China or Russia. And if you think it's okay because the government says we have nothing to worry about, well, I wish you the very best. Labour frontbencher Emily Thornberry appeared to rule out backing Jenny Jones out of the Green Party's motion, which is now backed by the Lib Dems. Emily Thornberry said Labour doesn't vote in the House of Lords to kill a bill. That's the Commons' job. The constitutional position is the unelected Lords is a revising chamber only. If a precedent was set, the Tories could easily use their majority in the Lords to do the same to a Labour government's laws. Seriously, the Labour Party think that the Tories are going to play nice and observe precedents if Labour wins the next election. They think the Conservative Party will just, play by Marquis of Queensberry rules and all that. Have they learned? Nothing.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was no general election next time. Cancelled for our safety and security. Jenny Jones said, "Dear Emily Thornberry, I hate to tell you this, but it's the Tory government setting the precedent. Introducing something by statutory instrument that has already been thrown out gives a minister the right to change any bill any time. Clearer? Feel better about stopping a Tory precedent?" I say that Jenny Jones should be running the Labour Party. Who's with me? Hands in the air while I count. Here's how deluded the opposition party are. A Labour Lords source confirmed to the Byline Times that it would not be backing Jenny Jones' motion. Shadow Home Affairs Secretary Vernon Coker's regret motion will, quotes, try and get the government to reconsider their decisions. Right, rely on the kindness of strangers. The source said, if it passes, the government has to respond in some way. Usually they'll get back with a report when they've got time. Hey, it's okay, everybody. Labour is going to make the government produce a report.
Oh, fabulous.
The government insists the police have asked for these powers to stop protests. So that makes it okay then. I mean, when did giving the police more powers over the people they're supposed to be serving ever turn out badly? That's happening this Tuesday. And no one's saying a blind word about it. I find that very suspicious. Everything about it is highly suspicious to me. Why the media blackout? It's pretty serious stuff. Wake up, sheeple. It's later than you think. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Brixton. Hello, Clive.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Clive.
Good morning to you.
Yes, sir.
Right, I just wanted to do a very quick three things. First of all, the only award that Boris's hairdresser should get is the sack for a terrible job that he does, or she.
Yeah.
And secondly, you've had two outstanding calls tonight. The first one was the guy in the dogging bottoms. I cracked up at that. It took me 5-10 minutes to get over that.
Mm-hmm.
And best of all was your retort. I thought that was brilliant too. And then your second best call tonight was the guy that announced happily that he wasn't gay right at the start of his conversation.
Right.
Those are the two outstanding calls, and what a great show.
Those two calls had nothing to do with me, so all the praise goes to them. But thanks for pointing that out, Clive. Cheers, mate. 0345.
Bye-bye.
Ta-da. 0345 6060 973. Hey, by the way, we put this show and the Friday night shows up on the internet as a podcast. Now, the idea is that we take the news and most of the ads out, mostly, which means it takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity, and Jenny Jones out of the Green Party will thank you personally.
Thank you.
If not personally, then, metaphorically. Do your bit to save the environment. It's only available on Global Player. The Whole Show Podcast, that's what it's called. If you've got one of them stupid smart speakers, then that is the phrase to say it is play Nick Abbott, The Whole Show Podcast on Global Player. If you haven't got Global Player, it's free. You can get it from your app store or globalplayer.com. And the Friday and Saturday night shows get put up as podcasts. Nick Abbott, The Whole Show Podcast.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I am not one of your fans!
Sally says, I am not sure I agree with you about Johnson not wanting to be leader. I think leader of the opposition would suit him down to the ground. You don't have to do any work. Just turn up occasionally with a witty jest and a jape, throw in a bit of classical repartee, casual misogyny and racism to a captive audience, and then sit down with a smirk. What's not to love? Well, I think the point about that is, Sally, you don't really have much power. He doesn't want to be the leader of the opposition. That is being number one loser. He wants to be the top dog. So he will come back and lead the Conservative Party, I bet, when he feels that it's more likely than not that he could lead them to victory in a general election. At that point, he'll come back. And what could wipe that horrific possibility out for good is if Skier actually introduces proportional representation, which we should absolutely, totally and definitely have in this country.
Affirmative.
Definitely. But he seems unwilling to do that, like, much else that people are clamouring for, because I suspect that he wants 100% of the power to reside in his hands when he wins the next election himself. It is very difficult to put a Rizzler paper between the two parties. I find it difficult to tell the difference. 0345 6060 973. Seven Oaks. Mark.
Hi. I'd like to ask you whether you think that Labour Party activists would rather have a Labour minority government than a Labour majority government, because that would fail to give Starmer's manifesto a mandate. And I think 80% of Labour Party members at the conference wanted proportional representation, and a slightly smaller, whopping majority wanted to rejoin the EU.
Yeah.
Now,
it's odd because not too long ago they didn't want proportional representation, but now they do. So let's just stick with where they feel at the moment.
Well, I think they can see that it has advantages. They've had the advantages spelled out to them in the last period of craziness where one person has taken over in a disastrous way. But actually, this could help with the general election, because the general election depends on cooperation. And that's not going to be at the party leadership level. It's going to be at the activist level, deciding which seat is going to be the concentrated effort of which party. And if the Labour activists are not that keen on getting an overall majority, then they could be quite generous to the Lib Dems and Greens, and therefore the local arrangements might work particularly well.
Yeah, I can't see that happening, though. Can you? I mean, there will be under the direction of the leadership, and the leadership will want as many seats as possible in order to get 100% of the power.
But that's not true. Labour activists are not paid. They can do what they like. They can't be expelled from the party for not campaigning. they can campaign for whichever Labour candidate they choose. And the leadership might say which ones they want them to campaign for, but they don't really have any power to force them in that direction. That really is their own choice.
Yeah, but they're not a great force in British politics, activists, are they, compared to the machine of the major parties?
Well, yes, they are, because if people see that in a particular seat you've got only Labour or only Lib Dem or only Green people campaigning, they'll get the message as to what's going on. And so I think that they do have that power to influence which seats will be won by which people to some extent. And they certainly have the power to organise so that the Conservatives don't win the seats. But obviously there are going to be issues about exactly which seats are going to be campaigned for by which party. But if one party is being generous because they don't really want a majority, or the activists don't, the campaigners don't, then that could well oil their own negotiations very well, and they'll get on well with each other.
Okay. All right. I can't see it myself, but you've obviously thought about it a lot. So good thinking there, Mark. And let me know straight away if you have another thought on that issue. Excellent work. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. Claire texts, in Canada, we the people have wanted proportional representation, but the government hasn't and does a song and a dance routine around the topic. Well, I'd like to see that. What does a Canadian look like when he's doing a song and a dance? Dance for me. Eh? Dance about the place. Gary emails, what about that? Gina Miller, a real-life grown-up person who makes sense when she speaks. I doubt I'd agree with all of her political views and ideas about the economy, but if she and others like her had political power, we'd be living in a democracy. We'd be tackling the issues that confront us and be respected around the world. Wow, can you imagine that?
No.
Phil says, it's about time the truth about Boris's 80-seat majority is told. The public believed his lies about Brexit and the media lies about Jezza Corbyn. Yeah, his 80-seat majority, it implies that he was much, much more popular than Theresa May, for instance. But that 80-seat majority does not reflect a greater number of people who voted for him than Theresa May. He only got 1.2% more than she did. It's where those votes fell that was important, and our screwed-up parliamentary system, the screwed-up voting system that we have here. First past the post. Which means that since the Second World War, we've had the Tory parties leading this country with a minority of the votes, but 100% of the power for about two-thirds of the time. For about two-thirds of the time, pretty much every single election, more people have wanted a left-of-centre party than a right-of-centre party. It's just that the left vote gets split between a multiplicity of parties, the Lib Dems and the Labour Party and the Greenies and SNP and so on. Whereas if you're on the right, you pretty much only had one choice, bar, a couple of fringe parties.
We've got a few idiots in our party.
Mentioning no names. And that's the reason why we've had the Tories for so blooming long. They get less than 50% of the votes, but they get 100% of the power over and over and over again. The system is skewed in their favour. And the only way that can get changed is if a Labour government comes in and determines to introduce proportional representation, which makes it incredible to me that Keir Starmer has refused to do that, to even contemplate the issue. What's going on here? 0345 6060 973. Let's have Bath. John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
How's the weather where you are? Because in Bath, it's actually very hot. I've got the windows open. I'm actually praying for rain. It's ridiculous.
Well, I believe that thunder, lightning, very, very frightening, could be coming to a location near you soon.
I am actually hoping so. I'll tell you what, I'm enjoying looking out my window at all the prospective young students getting completely off their faces. It's actually quite interesting because they've come on a bit of a recce just to see what it's going to be like.
I would call the police. It's 12:30. Don't you kids have a home to go to?
I know. I've got to be careful because I don't want to go too right wing. You know, I'm in your political kind of section.
Well, I can be left of centre, you know, when it pleases me. But if somebody starts making a noise round where I live, then I want them executed.
But that's the point. Against the wall immediately, along with the flies and the spiders that come into my... They're coming into my... I've got the windows open. They're flying all over this place.
Yeah, insects are okay in their place, but if they invade my space, then it's the death penalty.
No, I was going to say this. First of all, the way you described the Green leader, Jenny Jones, it always reminds me of the Clash song.
Yes. Not that Jenny Jones, another one.
No, I know, but I just, you know, I'm surprised she hasn't used it as a kind of a... but anyway, it's so kind of... It's so depressing because it's like, I don't want to be mean, but I think the Johnsons need to realise their golden boy isn't what they think he is.
I believe they know exactly who he is.
But, you know,
I mean, they've grown up with him, for crying out loud.
No, but they think, you know, they make excuses. He can spout off a bit of Latin here and there and whatever. The bottom line is...
Painful.
He should actually just take a leaf out of his ancestors' book that went to Turkey and got hung from a tree.
Oh,
I mean...
Let's not get carried away.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. I'm not an aggressive person. What I'm saying is, if that happened in my family, I wouldn't go near politics. Because they're clearly on a curve. They misinterpret everything. And I can't believe Sean Bailey. What's he been promoted for?
I don't know. Is Boris Johnson's wife's dog walker got a funny name and a badge?
And fabricant for services to spaghetti.
God.
I mean, I don't...
What is happening? I mean, seriously, what is going on? And Nads didn't get one this time around, neither did his dad. But I bet that they're top of the list for the following list.
I mean, honestly, don't get me wrong, Nick. I don't have a problem. I don't wish anybody any harm at all. But I just no, there's no but involved in it. I just don't get why we've tolerated 13 years of this jiggery pokery.
Well, the thing that I hear over and over again is, what Labour wouldn't do any better, would they?
Yeah, but
despite the fact that the evidence is incontrovertible that Labour did do better when they were in power.
The point is, look at our debt now. It's like four
times as much as when the Tories took over. Four times.
Do you remember the mantra? Oh, they didn't fix the roof when the sun was shining. Do you remember that? That's what the Tories were always saying. They were saying about the Labour Party. They left a note and said there was no money left.
God, they always do that. It's
they just have these little
pretty much a tradition. It's like a joke, like a running joke.
They need to stop dealing with these strap lines. They need to stop trying to do PR because they're absolutely useless at it.
Who, the Tories?
Yeah.
I don't believe that they are, because their strategy, such as it is extremely successful. They win election after election.
I know, but that's so depressing, isn't it?
Yes. Depressing, absolutely. Successful, also absolutely.
I mean, it's like being someone standing over your bed while giving you the euthanasia injection and saying, well, you know, this is the best we can do for the country.
Yeah, this is going to...
We've all got to pull our weight.
Yeah, it's going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. Yeah.
I don't know, but
okay.
Anyway,
all right. Hanging, euthanasia, you are a cheery bloke.
Well, no, it's only because the weather's very hot.
Yeah, and all those kids are making a racket outside your window.
I know they're driving.
Yeah, I know. All right. OK, well, the best of luck with that, John. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. Oh, blimey, look at the time. 12:30. The news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us.
Yes, your call is important to us. Mike in Perth.
Hello, Nick.
Mike.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Listen, once more I hear you spouting about proportional representation. I think we've spoken before about this. I'll give you a call just to tell you the proportional representation takes place, as you know, in Scotland, an unmitigated disaster.
In what way?
Unmitigated, I'll tell you in what way. We have 8 Green MSPs. Not one of them. They managed to secure a minuscule amount of votes, and because of proportional representation, they had to get seats. Not one of them. Not one of them first past the post. Not one of them. But because they got a minuscule, as I repeat, amount of seats, because of proportional, and now what we have is, in fact, further to that, because the SNP government needed their backing to pass their budget, they actually gave 2 of these non-elected Green MSPs seats in the actual government, which is absolutely... People didn't vote for them, but
they did, though. They did vote for them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. They managed to achieve... I can't remember what the percentage is.
Right, proportional. Proportional to the number of votes is the representation.
That's...
Well, what's disastrous about it, though? I mean, what's so bad about Green?
Say again?
You said that it was disastrous. In what way?
I'll tell you in what way. We have, and I'm sorry to add this, but it's a fact. On the A9 dual carriageway, which was supposed to be one of the SNP's promises, they promised it about 12 years ago that we'd be dualled from Perth up to Inverness, a distance of about 84 miles, I believe. So far, the SNP government, they've pulled it. They said they don't really know when it will be done.
The A9.
The A9, yeah.
Have you got anything more serious than that is concerning you?
If you just let me finish, Nick, please. There have been this is serious. There have been 13 fatalities, and I think you should call... I'm a wee bit... Is that not serious enough? 13 fatalities.
In what period of time?
Over the last 2 or 3 years.
Right, well, people die all the time. How is that the Greens' fault?
Because of the state of the A9 as it is just now. It's an accident waiting to happen on many parts of the A9. That's the thing. 13 fatalities that might not have been fatalities had it been duelled. But because this Green Party wags the SNP dog...
Right. I think you're concentrating on the small stuff. There was approximately 1,500 people die on Britain's roads every year, and you're talking about 13, and that in and of itself.
So you're dismissing that? You're dismissing 13 fatalities?
No, I'm saying that people would have died anyway. 1,500 people die on Britain's roads every year.
You seem to be dismissing it. I'm telling you that that's one of the reasons we need it duelled. But basically...
You can't possibly think that a dualled carriageway will stop people dying on the roads.
It would help.
How?
They might not. No, because I've travelled that road many times, and there are absolutely horrific junctions on that road, which would be eliminated with dual carriageway. But because of the Greens don't want cars on the road, it's as simple as that. They've managed to stick their oar in, and it's been pulled.
Well, by definition, Mike, if there weren't cars on the roads, then there would be no deaths on the roads.
Absolute scandal. We have, as I say, the Greens' tail wagging the SNP dog in Scotland. 2 government ministers who basically... And it's just been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, you keep saying that, Mike, with absolutely no evidence of any kind whatsoever. 13 people died on a road. which is a tiny fraction of the number of people that die on Britain's roads every year, which is not to even mention those that are injured. What are you talking about? Proportional representation is an unmitigated disaster because of the A9? I think you need to recalibrate there, Mike. I think you need to think it out again. But thanks a lot. 0345 6060 973. Paul says, I bet Fat Adder is telling those Tory MPs who resigned that he has a cunning plan. Poor dopes. Fat Adder. Do they mean you, Bodge? Paul says, Rees-Mogg will be too busy designing his coat of arms to comment. Upturned nostrils over an azure sneer.
My view.
Yeah, mine too. The top-hatted twiglet has got work to do. Yeah, very, very important. Not to be disturbed. Edgware. Hello, Ben.
Oh, hello.
Ben.
Nick. Yes, can you hear me?
No.
Okay, could I just say something about Starmer? There's a wonderful book called The Starmer Project by Oliver Eagleton, which actually shows how Starmer, in fact, has very dictatorial tendencies. When he was the director of public prosecutions, he wanted to introduce, together with working with David Cameron at the time, to introduce even more strict legislation against protesters and protests.
Yeah, I have little faith in his actually coming to our rescue.
And the Labour Party is now a husk, having got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. All the left people, socialists, Jewish socialists as well, have been expelled or suspended. He's trying to eradicate everything that Labour actually stood for.
Yeah, like Tory light.
Exactly. And even Rachel Reed, who was boasting about the 26 billion, for the Green New Deal, she's now, rowing back on that and saying, we'll have to wait till, the midterm of a Labour government. Yeah. They're just terrified of anything.
They do seem to be terrified of upsetting anybody, as though if they make a lurch in any direction, if they make a move of any kind, then somebody might be displeased with them. So they're just going to stand still and hope that nobody sees them, and by that method they can sidle into number 10. And I'm not sure that that's a very good plan.
It isn't. It's a husk now, and they should bring back Jeremy Corbyn.
Right. I mean, they ain't going to do that. Not
because
now.
He had the
not
right
ever.
policy.
Never.
He had the right policy.
When I used to, when Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, they put out a manifesto, and I used to put his manifesto promises to people on the air without telling them where these promises were coming from. And they would almost uniformly say, well, that's a good idea, like taxing the rich a little bit more and nationalising the railways and our most vital industries. That's a good idea too, and so on and so on. And then when I would tell them whose policies they were, their answers were usually the same. Yeah, appalled at the very idea, because they've been, they've been pummeled by the billionaire press that Jeremy Corbyn was not a person that is to be trusted in any way.
Exactly, and there are fantastic books coming out now about this whole smear campaign.
Well, the thing is, Ben, they're books, so it's a big no from me. I'll wait till the video comes out. All right.
Well, read the books. I can give you a whole list.
No, thanks.
You'll see,
that sounds like homework. Homework at the weekend, but sir. Thanks, Ben. 0345 6060 973. Pray see it for me. Can you do it in cartoon form? Andrew says, don't you think you've been a bit harsh, Nick? A man steps down as MP to spend more time making model buses out of wine crates, and you're banding about accusations of wrongdoing.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah. What was that about? I mean, some people say that he came up with that fantastical story about what he does in his spare time was make model buses out of wine crates in order to make an internet search on Boris buses come up with that rather than the £350 million a week fantastical promise about, the big Brexit fantasy.
Liar!
Exactly. That bus was a liar. But I don't buy that. It's just such a weird thing for him to say. He pulled that out of the air. Oh, what do I do in my spare time? Oh, God, I actually make, model buses out of wine crates. Yeah, sure you do. Show us one. Tweet us a picture of one. I double dare you. Oh 0345 6060 973. Sing texts. Boris was my MP. The lamppost in our street stopped working. I sent an email to Boris. The next day he was at the lamppost in a yellow high-vis jacket and hard hat. The whole street came out and cheered. He went up in a basket to look at the light. Eventually he came down. We asked him if the lamppost was fixed. He said no, it was broken. Lampius brochius. We asked if he could change the light bulb. He said no, it was installed under Labour, so it wasn't his problem. But he did his best. Fingers crossed Labour win the next general election so they can fix our lamppost. It was a sort of a long and rambling joke of sorts, I suppose. The long and rambling joke.
Rock and roll!
0345 6060 973. Nick Abbot, LBC. 0345 6060 973. Stuart texts, I have a bone to pick. Bone?
Oh, no.
He says, I tried to ask my smart speaker to play Nick Abbot The Whole Show podcast, and I lay in bed ready to be entertained. He says, I don't know why, but it played a podcast from September last, when Liz Truss was PM.
Absolutely.
It was all very surreal, and I wondered whether I'd actually dreamed the last 9 months. You must try harder, says Stuart. Well, hey, Stuart, maybe you've got a stupid smart speaker. Did you think of that? I don't know why that might be. Try turning it off and on again. Les says, do you know why Boris didn't reward his greatest superfan, Nodding Doris, in his honours list? Yeah, it's because Fishy didn't want to have to fight a by-election, because he's not very popular anymore. Not that he was very popular in the first place. But he's realising the extent of his unpopularity. He didn't want to fight a by-election because she would have had to quit instantly on being ennobled. And then she went ahead and quit anyway. But she's going to get her gong next time around. I betcha. As will Bodger's dad. That absolutely is going to happen. They didn't get it this time around, but don't you worry. They'll get theirs. And Rishi Sunak's hope of re-election looked to be in dire straits, apparently. Isn't that sad?
No.
The Prime Minister set out 5 priorities at the start of the year, including but not limited to, limited to halving inflation, growing the economy, cutting NHS waiting lists, reducing the national debt and stopping small boat crossings, of which only one was his top priority.
The country's priority is to stop the boats. And at the same time, I think people know that I'm relentlessly focusing on stopping the boats. And I'm relentlessly focused on stopping the boats. That's one of my 5 priorities, stopping the boats. And I think people know that I'm working night and day to stop the boats. I firmly believe that that's what the country wants me to do. That's what the government is committed to doing, and we're working night and day to stop the boats. That's what the country wants us to focus on, and I will keep at it.
Yeah, he's gripping it. But almost halfway through the year, a poll by Ipsos found that more than 50% of the people think that the government is doing a bad job on almost all of those priorities. But, don't blame Rishi for all of that, because Mr. Blobby had a huge, podgy hand in it.
The great, big, greedy nincompoop.
And, of course, there was a brief but not brief enough rule of the loopy-loo Lizbot.
Absolutely.
So they are partly to blame. The poll found that the public tended to think that Rishi Sunak was doing a worse job on the areas that were most important to them. And it appears that they have not been hypnotised into believing that their problems are all down to the boats that have not been stopped. The public's top priority, according to the poll, was easing the cost of living, followed by ensuring people can get NHS treatment more quickly and reducing NHS waiting lists. But 60% said the government was doing a bad job on easing the cost of living. Only 18% said that it was doing a good job, which makes you wonder what the 18% are thinking. I mean, wake up, people. In more bad news for fishy Sunak, a separate poll showed that 52% of those who voted Conservative in 2019 said that they would not do so again. I mean, it took a while, but by Jove, I do believe they've got it. Finally, they've seen the light. About half of the people that voted Tory in 2019 said, absolutely not am I going to do that again. And the PM's personal approval rating among voters has also fallen dramatically since the Conservatives' disastrous local election results, and it could be summed up in one syllable with multiple oohs. No! Yeah, the hopes of re-election look to be in dire straits. They've shed half of the Conservative voters that they had at the last election. Oh dear, what a pity, never mind. Southall, Joshua.
Hey, Nick, great show.
Thanks.
In the last 10 minutes, I've been mostly emailing Jenny Jones.
Oh, yes.
Mostly. Yeah, you have to do me a favour and tell me where that mostly came from. Is it from the Fast Show?
No, it's from Aliens.
What, the film?
Yeah. The little kid that they find on the station. There's spoiler alerts coming. Warning! They find a little kid on the station. It's pretty much it's the only human being they found alive. And she says, about the alien monsters. Said they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
That's been killing me the last few weeks. I always thought it was the Fast Show. Right, is it possible to have Jenny Jones on your show tomorrow?
I've got no idea. I don't book guests for my show, but I would imagine that she's busy doing, important business.
Well, I've sent off an email to her and saying that you've been talking about her.
Mm. In the nicest possible way. I hope you made that clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, one more thing.
And another thing.
You always say you've never seen Father Ted.
Father Ted? No, I've never seen The Fast Show either.
Oh my word! You're the same age as me, 62, right?
62 years old. Yeah.
Thank you very much. But I can't believe you've gone through the 90s without seeing Father Ted. You have to do yourself a favour.
Well, it sounds like homework.
No.
Are you giving me homework?
No.
It sounds suspiciously like homework to me.
I can hear a whack coming on now. All right. Thank you very much.
OK, excellent work. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Joni says, how did you and Carol become friends when you are so politically different?
Yeah.
I think we were... I don't quite recall how it happened that we started doing a show together, but we were thrown together because we used to work at the same radio station. I can't recall whose idea it was for us to do a show together, but we did it on various stations, and it was my idea to do the podcast. Not Carol's idea.
Oh, right, yeah.
My idea. And I came up with this genius plan to try to solve people's problems. Let me restate my case. If you want us to solve your problem, then you're going to have to tell us what it is. We're not mind readers. The address to send it to is nickandcarol@global.com. NICKANDCAROL @global.com, and prepare to be totally satisfied.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, and you'll find that on Global Player. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? Gareth says, am I the only person in the world who looks at Mickey Fabricant and thinks that the geezer's barnet is riddled with nits and other nasties?
Disgusting.
Oh, come on, Gareth. No animal or insect could live in that. I don't believe it's possible. I mean, it's made of plastic for a start. I don't know that that's true, but it doesn't prevent it from being a fact. He says Chris Packham should add Mickey's weave to the summer watch schedule. It can't possibly be a wig. It can't. Nobody would make a wig that looks like that. They just wouldn't. I've said this before, but it looks to me like, you know those restaurants that put plastic food in the windows? Now, they put plastic food in there so they don't have to change it. They don't have to throw away actual real food, and they just put it there as a demonstration of what it is that they serve. But whatever it is on top of his head looks like plastic spaghetti to me. Plastic spaghetti that he found in some, cheap Italian restaurant in the window. Just picked it out the window and ran off with it, and he's been wearing it ever since. He looks fantastic, as in science fiction. Ruben says, Nick, this is how much of a man of the people that Boris is. The nurses that actually saved his life when he was in intensive care with COVID get nothing, but his wife's dog walker gets a gong. To be fair to the British people, they deserve this. They chose him. They chose a clown and a fool, and they got the whole circus.
Yeah.
That is true. Tim says, what are the odds on Bodger deciding that the EU needs to be rejoined and hangs his comeback on that hook? I wouldn't put it past him, would you? No, Tim. Wouldn't put anything past him. Chris says, knowing how broke Johnson is, these must have been the cheapest peerages ever bought, as he never pays for anything himself. Who's going to settle the invoices for the next rolls of delightfully overpriced wallpaper? John said, let me see how many of these I've got. Okay. Hey, you know what? I might actually get to the end of these. It's possible. I don't think I've ever done that before. John says, Johnson successfully gaslit half the country in the greatest long con ever perpetrated on the voting public, if you include his mayorship as well. He devalued the currency of every roll and established a new low in behaviour. Brazen mendacity is now fashionable, thanks to him, as exemplified by Brexit, says John. Yeah, he didn't only devalue the currency of every roll. He actually devalued our currency, our actual money. Don't forget that. Chris says, the plan. Starmer wins the next election and Sunak is toast. Cruella becomes leader of the opposition.
Oh, no.
And Tory support shrivels. Time for the second coming, says Chris. Yeah, I think that's pretty much word for word what I said, apart from the Cruella becoming the leader of the opposition. Oh, my God, can you imagine? Actually, yes. Yes, I can. I mean, it could be worse.
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure. Heidi says, This is my dream, Nick. Boris goes to prison or America. The dishonest list gets ignored. Rishi calls a general election. All the numbnuts in the Tory party lose their seats. Trump gets incarcerated. As in, put in jail. Donny.
Oh, shut up!
Carrie leaves Boris. Boris marries Nadine in prison. Rees-Mogg is placed in an old relics museum.
My view.
And Suella sails away in a boat with Farage. Wow. That's not a dream, Heidi. That's a nightmare. Oh, that's it. Oh, I didn't get to the end. Oh, close, no cigar. So, sorry about that if you were one of the people that I couldn't get around to. I'm not perfect. Not absolutely perfect, anyway. Now, if you missed any part of this show, you can listen back to on Global Player, on Catch Up, and with Global Player, you can rewind live radio. How they do that, nobody knows. It's a magic trick. Rewind live radio. How do they do that? Global Player, download it for free from your app store, or head to globalplayer.com. I'm going to be back tonight for my Abnormal Normal show. Coming up at 4 o'clock, it's Marina Perkis. Right now, Clive Ball.
Nick, thank you. After the news, with 3 by-elections looming and more predicted, 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 more predicted.